Hello and welcome to this short video on foreign, comparative, and international law research at UMass Law. My name is Caitlin Goldsby. I am a public services law librarian here at UMass Law, and I can be reached at kgoldsby@umassd.edu. So the three main areas we're going to talk about today are first, different kinds of research guide that can help you identify a topic and get started in researching. Then we'll talk about a few library databases you have access to as a student here at UMass. And then we'll talk about foreign law web sources. Starting off with research guides, I have three listed here that I think are very important. The first one is a law library guide that was written by myself and is included in the UMass Law Library's collection of research guides. Then there's GlobalX, which is through NYU. And then finally, the Law Library of Congress guides to law on the web available for many, many different countries. So these are all great starting points. Let's first look at the Foreign, Comparative, and International Legal Research Guide here. So these are all going to be resources keyed to what's available here at UMass Law. So you'll probably, while you're researching or Googling something, uh, find some research guides from different libraries, and those are all very helpful, of course, but the resources in this guide in particular are going to tell you specifically what resources we have here in the law library and in the main campus library that would be helpful for this research area. So there are some books being suggested. There's a few different parts here. I have some instructions on how to find international and foreign materials in Westlaw and Lexis. We'll cover that during this presentation too, but if you forget, it's available. And here are some of the links we'll actually be talking about today, as well as additional links and some books that you may want to look into as well. So this is a great guide for you to take a look at, and you can access it by going to guides.lib.umassd.edu/FCIL, and that link is also in this presentation. The next one we're going to look at is GlobalX. GlobalX is an open access electronic legal publication. It's something that you can sort of dip into, and it is usually pretty helpful, especially if there is an article that is specific to your topic. So let's take a look at comparative law here. One of the things I do like about this is that you can subscribe to new issue updates. There may or may not be one during the semester in which you are writing a paper or researching foreign comparative or international law. So you can sign up for these updates, and if there is some kind of big update, you'll get an email about it, and that can be pretty helpful if you're doing an ongoing research project. But here are some of the articles, and you'll see here it goes sort of by topic. So it starts off, this is all alphabetical. I clicked on something by accident there, but this actually is a good example. So this is about judicial power and high courts in Latin America. So you'll see here it goes over kind of a regional perspective, and then you'll actually get a breakdown by country of what laws are relevant to this topic. And it reads sort of like an ordinary secondary source you might encounter in Lexis or Westlaw. It has some citations. Overall, pretty useful thing. And just to look at a few other you know, different areas of law you might be interested in. There's an immigration law section, data privacy, family law. There's sort of looking into specific regions, things about the region, not necessarily that region in the context of a different topic. So this is like a good general overview, and taxation. So this is a great resource if there is an article on point for you. And then the last one is the Law Library of Congress Guides. And again, you can click through from this presentation if you'd like. I will give the link to whoever wants to post it in their class for you to be able to access that. So this is the Law Library of Congress. It's also something you could Google the Law Library of Congress research guides and be brought to this same page if you can't find the link. And the reason I'm overstating how you can access this is I do think this is one of the most valuable resources that are available for free if you are trying to research the laws of a different country. So if you go to all guides, you can see what the range is for the different research guides here. So it's alphabetical, but these are all called Guide to Law Online. So it's a guide to different sources of law available for each country that are just free to access. And of course, if you already know that you want to write a paper about Armenia, you can just come up here and use the search bar to find that country. I'm going to browse because I want you all to see how thorough these guides can get. There are many, many different countries covered here. And then I'll also show you just an example. So let's go to Mozambique. And almost all of these guides have a similar layout. So you have an introduction, then there's information about the Constitution, different branches of government, and then additional legal guides as well as general sources. So this is great because it gives you an overview of sort of the structure of their legal system as well as where to find the law itself. And let's go ahead and look at their judicial branch and see what's there. So this is the World Factbook. This is a federal government resource that's pretty helpful. And then also this is the South African Legal Information Institute. So this is just how you'd find information about the judicial branch there. And then of course we have legislative information. So there's secondary sources and I don't know, sort of like quasi primary resources. It's like a resource that the sole purpose is to provide you with the law in the area. So, each country is obviously going to vary in what they consider to be an official or unofficial source of laws. That's something to keep in mind. But, if you get nothing out of this, just know that you can find lots of information about the legislation of different countries just by going to these guides to law online. So the next item we'll be talking about are databases. So there's Lexis and Westlaw. These are both available and have limited international law resources. But I'm going to show you where you could find that in Lexis and Westlaw because a lot of people are very comfortable using those databases by this point in their legal education. And then I'll also show you how to access the Foreign Law Guide and West Academic Study Aids, and we're going to access those directly from the UMass Law Library website, so we'll navigate there in just a moment. So in Westlaw, again, there's a limited number of international treatises, but there are a lot of multinational treatises. So to get to this section, you can go to content types and then international materials. So once you log into Westlaw, this is sort of what comes up. If you click on the content types tab and then scroll down to international materials, you can see what's available. There aren't an awful lot of jurisdictions covered here, but you'll see the content types, it's pretty broad range here. So let's look for treatises specifically. As a reminder, treatises are just a very valuable secondary source that comprehensively deals with a particular subject, and sometimes it deals with a particular subject in a very particular jurisdiction. So this is going to be extremely helpful to you in sort of getting started on your research and trying to understand sort of some of the main concepts in whichever country you're deciding to write about. The multinational treatises is the one thing I think is really fun to show you because there are so many. So if you're comfortable using American law reports, there's an international version of that. There's this comparative copyright resource. I mean, you can see here there's a lot of different options here. There's stuff specific to types of intellectual property. So if you only want to look at trade secrets or trademark, these might be good. So I highly encourage you to check out this particular area of Westlaw. And then there are a few other international materials here as well. So if I were writing a paper, let's say about Switzerland, I would want to see what treatises are available here. And then this is specifically a guide to Swiss case law, which could be extremely valuable if that's something you end up needing to research. And then this is about arbitration. So these are two very valuable resources if you were writing about Switzerland. And then let's go to Lexis really quickly. So just as a quick reminder, on Lexis, you just sort of log in as normal, of course. But the foreign legal materials here are organized by country, and they have a little bit more available than Westlaw. What I think is the best resource on Lexis is the secondary sources about international law, so we'll go there now. So you would go to international, and there's a whole tab just for international. That's kind of a good sign, really, that Lexis is going to have a fair amount of coverage. They have a whole tab dedicated to it with everything else here. So you can see you can go by country and region, or you can go by content type. So I'm going to open up secondary materials now. And these are the countries and regions covered. So let's take a look at legal secondary materials available for the Philippines. And they have some legal news, which also would be very helpful to you if you're researching sort of a developing area of law in a different country. You may want to set up alerts or make it a habit to regularly check news updates for that country. But we want to look at treatises, guides, and jurisprudence. This is a guide to doing business in the Philippines. And you'll see here there's a full table of contents. And then this is really written for the perspective of a firm or a company that's trying to do some kind of business in the Philippines, whether that's just manufacturing or really any number of things. This would be a really great place to start, for, of course, a law firm looking into this, but also someone doing a research project about business in the Philippines. And then the other thing I would like to show you for Lexis is we'll go back to the main screen, then international. And we can do statutes and legislation here as well. So if you're looking for statutes and legislation, these are the countries that Lexis has available. Let's see what China has. And it brings you back to kind of a main China landing page that's organized again by topic. And we'll look at Hong Kong cases. And they have reported and unreported cases available. And every country is going to have a unique way of categorizing these things, but we're going to click on a case from 2025 here. And I just want to note that these are, of course, in English because you're accessing them via Lexis. If you are researching somewhere else that is not Lexis and you find a citation to a case, it might be a good idea to come back here and see if you can match that with an English translation. The translation available here is probably going to be at least a bit more trustworthy than a Google Translate version of a case if the case had to be translated. So keep that in mind as well. If you're Google translating a case or a statute, it may be advisable to go into Lexis and see if you can find that piece of law here in this database where we can sort of understand that, somebody, an editor who has a legal mind was looking at this information and may have had something to do with translating it, and it's not just done automatically. And I'll bring up that point again a little bit later when we talk about law sources on the web. These other two things I would like to talk about are Foreign Law Guide and West Academic Study Aids. So there's a specific series on West Academic Study Aids called the Global Issues Series. That's what I'd like to show you, although there are a few other helpful books available there. And then the Foreign Law Guide, I think, is really one of the most helpful sources for comparative and foreign law research because it has a lot of English translations available and will give direct links to the law as it's available online whenever it can. So to get to these, what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to go to the law library website, UMass Law Library. There we go. And yes, it's totally perfectly fine to Google it in this situation, but if you'd prefer not to, you can go to umassd.edu/law/library. That is our website. And you'll scroll down here, and this is the Foreign Law Guide, so I'll open that in a new tab. And then there's the West Academic Study Aid Library. So for this, you do have to click through a second time to find the Foreign Law Guide. So when you first get onto this website, of course, it'll harass you with a few pop-ups, but we have full access to the Foreign Law Guide while you're connected to UMass Law's Wi-Fi. This is something you're going to want to access specifically from the law school, and you're going to have difficulty trying to access it from home. So try to do your research starting here, but a lot of these websites, as you might see in a moment, are obviously going to be available no matter where you're accessing them from. Do this part at school and then take the links and review those at home. So let's go to all jurisdictions. And actually, one thing I'll point out too is the updated jurisdictions is fun because it tells you these are the jurisdictions that were recently updated. So if you are researching a country that fell within this list somehow, then you would know that it was recently updated and you may want to check it a little bit later into the semester to see if there's anything relevant. All jurisdictions is going to show you each country that's available here, organized alphabetically. So you can just select whatever country it is you're interested in researching and learn more. We'll look at this way to do things first. Let's pretend we're researching Aruba. It'll tell you the last time that this section was updated. Some of them have to be updated a little more recently than other ones. And this is an introduction to the government and legal system, legal history, and then also legislation and the judicial system of this particular country. So this is Aruba again. And then there's also primary sources, so their official gazette. And then if these are available, there would be a link to it. And then there's codes and court reports. So these are the resources that are available for Aruba. And then here's other materials. So some other things that could be helpful. Just one note too, if you find a print source listed on this website, if you want to email myself or lawlib at umass.edu, we can get these from different libraries via ILL. But here is the law by subject for Aruba specifically. So if I want to know what contract law in Aruba looks like, I would go down here to contracts, and then I would find the specific section of their civil code and commercial codes that govern that topic. It's very easy. I highly suggest this resource. And then we'll click through as well just to see what it looks like. So yeah, these aren't well, this part, you're going to see some foreign languages here, but if you read a little bit further, it'll tell you here official current consolidated Dutch text on the government website. So this is one of those cases where you might have to rely on Google Translate to see exactly what the law says. And then these are specific citations. And we'll go here to their criminal code too, just to see. Accept necessary cookies. And usually what happens is Google will pop up, but you'll see here that you can get an English translation of the website as well. So obviously, if English is your primary language, you're going to want to switch that over. And then just kind of use their website as normal, right? So the great thing about this specifically is the fact that it helps you figure out where to go. If you don't know anything about a country at all, it'll give you the actual citations or what they call their written law, what they might call their court cases or their equivalent of like a reporter, like we have in the United States. So that's a great strength to this particular resource. And then we're going to go back. And the other thing I'd like to show you is the fact that you can also look at laws by subject. So if you click on this, these are all of the different subjects covered. So let's do insurance. So this is going to tell you all of the countries that have some kind of laws on the books that have to do with insurance. And then of course you could open it up to find some resources that either talk about the law or are the law themselves. That is just one good way of figuring out which countries have something to say about a particular topic. And then, of course, you could compare them by opening them in different tabs. So we would do Egypt and Ecuador. So if you want to compare these two jurisdictions on how they deal with insurance, then of course you could do so with two different tabs. So really great resource. And then the last thing I want to show you is this is West Academic. Again, we came to this by starting off on our main library website, West Academic Study Aid Library. And then if you go to series, there's a global issues series. And that global issues series There's only, you can see here, there's only 24 different results for this, but if you are trying to write about a topic, or if you're really interested in a topic and you can't figure out necessarily what country or countries to write about, this might be a good place to start. And this is an ebook, so you can read it right here on the website. If you want to print them, you can do sort of a print to PDF of the website itself. Let's take a look at the environmental law one. And one thing, of course, before you get started is it's always a good idea to browse the book's table of contents to make sure. But you can see here some of the very specific topics under this broad topic are covered here. So if you only wanted to look into the human right to water, this is one example, I suppose, of a case where this was decided. There's water quality, so it's also it's giving you some leading or particularly important cases within the countries that have environmental law. So it's again just something you might at least want to browse to make sure it doesn't cover something that you're interested in. Um, but I do think it's worth a look. So the next thing I will talk about is just sort of foreign law sources on the web. So as you saw from Brill, there are a lot of sites that you can go to. Much like what happens in the United States, there are federal and state level websites that will give you statutes or talk about the law, sort of provide information about processes and other legally significant things within that country. So what we're going to look at here is Legifrance. Again, a lot is available online for free. The challenge for this is the language barrier. So Google Translation is available. I would always suggest first that you look around the website. Usually in the upper right-hand corner, there will be some kind of little panel that you can use to select English as an option. But of course, where that fails, Google Translate can help. And Google Translate has come a long way from what it used to be, but you should also keep in mind that legal terminology can be pretty challenging for translation services. There are specialized translators for legal information. So I put in the website and I'm offered this English translation, and it seamlessly translates the website. And now you can sort of see what the different things are. So this is the official journal of the French Republic. Let's see what that looks like. You can see here that these headings are available in English, and the translation service sort of carries over to the actual version of things. And like I said before, if you do find something that you used Google Translate for and it's available on Lexis, I highly suggest that you sort of cross-reference those to make sure that there's not sort of omissions or misunderstandings that happened in the Google Translate, because again, it's completely automated. A human being is not really making any decisions on that. So that is absolutely something to keep in mind. And the last thing I want to say, of course, is thank you very much for your time and attention. I'm here for you. If you have any questions for me, you can email me. And again, my email is kgolesby@umassd.edu. If you want to send me an email to arrange a consultation for your research and writing this semester, please just send me that email and I will send you my appointments link. And then, of course, if you have questions for the law library more broadly, you can email lawlib@umassd.edu. Please take a look here at this appointment link, or, of course, send me a quick email. And, of course, you'll probably see my face around the library, so feel free to stop by and say hello too. My office is right behind the info desk, so if I'm not out there, I'm probably hiding in the back somewhere waiting for someone to ask me a good question. Thanks again for your time. Please reach out.